What's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? I never get comfortable doing this. I promise you, I never get comfortable uh doing this live thing. And this is probably what, like six in a row, or maybe less. I don't know. And it's always like this nervousness, and maybe it never goes away. But I struggle. I struggle to get to do this and get comfortable being on live. But anyway, welcome to One My Black History. Going live. My name is Country Boy. I'm always happy to be here. I'm always happy to see you guys. This is always enjoyable for me. The way this normally happens is I will tell a story from Black history. Today we're going to talk about swimming, and then afterwards we'll have a conversation. We'll shoot the shit, and we'll discuss. You got any questions for me? I'll open up the floor to you guys, and that's how the format. That's how the format typically goes. I never know whether or not any of this is working. I hope so. Let me make sure that I beam this out to everybody. Man, this is slow. All right, let's rock. Let's rock. All right, so today we're going to talk about Black swimmers and why you historically don't we don't swim. We don't really swim. I will say that I learned to swim, but most of that was because of my father, who made this a big deal for him that we learned to swim. I went to the YMCA back when I was a kid, and we learned to swim at the YMCA. And later, he just kind of tossed me into the pool and was like, "Don't drown, don't drown." Turns out I did not know how to swim in the deep end. It was kind of a mess, but I'm still here. I sort of. Anyway, let's go ahead and get it cracking. So, to start this off, it's a blazing hot day in St. Louis in 1939 at the Fairground Park Pool. It finally opens, and the Fairground Park Pool in St. Louis finally opens up to Black swimmers for the very first time. What should have been an epic victory, instead, things took a terrifying turn. In no time flat, an angry mob of white residents stormed the gate with fists, bats, and bricks. And just like that, the police swarm in and they shut down the entire pool. Dozens of people were injured. Dozens of people were injured with 9 being arrested. And Black families were once again locked out of the public swimming pool. What happened at the swimming pool dropped the attendance to Fairground Park Pool so dramatically that the pool ultimately closed just 6 years later in 1956. And incidents like this were not isolated. They're entrenched in America's complicated racial history, especially about pools, beaches, and water. But the irony in all of this is that long before enslavement, long before we had met Europeans, swimming was a way of life in many African cultures. People swam for fun, for survival, and it was woven into the daily life of many African cultures. Historian Kevin Dawson, talks about West Africans in particular being renowned for their aquatic experience. In fact, European observers in the 15th and 16th century often noted with a mix of awe and envy just how skilled Africans were at performing dives, and underwater feats, some that Europeans had not seen before up to that time. So during the transatlantic slave trade, where it ripped millions of us from our homes, These skills didn't just disappear. They crossed the Atlantic too, and enslaved Africans were so legendary for their swimming and diving skills that some white enslavers would force them to dive for shipwrecks, capture cargo, and gather pearls. Contemporary accounts tell stories of enslaved Africans out swimming their European captors or teaching them their swimming techniques. And it's a bitter twist of irony that we were once masters of the water just for hundreds of years later to be excluded from it. So what happened? How did you get disconnected from swimming? What did the man do to rip you? How did you get disconnected from swimming? Well, fast forward to the end of enslavement, to Reconstruction, the rise of Jim Crow, and segregation locked Black folks out of not just jobs and schools and transit, but it put up literal barriers to waterways and public pools and beaches that had been spaces for recreation, teaching, and community. Public pool policies were ruthlessly enforced through public ordinances, violence, and flat out intimidation. Black children were denied access to swimming lessons, and Black adults were barred from passing down those traditions to their kids. So when you start to enter the golden age of American swimming, which is around the 1900s to the 1940s, cities and towns poured money, specifically after the New Deal, into a pool building boom. They built almost 2,000 pools nationwide, and vast majority of them were whites only. White neighborhoods got giant Olympic-sized swimming pools, and Black neighborhoods maybe got one crumbling indoor, tiny indoor pool that only happened because of massive organizing and protests. But this wasn't just about cooling off. Pools were symbols of power and privilege. And if you were Black or poor or both, you faced exclusion on every single front, whether that was closed doors, high membership fees, white only sign, locked gates, unofficially hostile stares, outright violence if you dared to cross those lines of segregation. See, when we talked about St. Louis Fairground Pool in the opening, it opened in 1913. And at the time, it was the country, maybe the world's largest pool. It could house over 10,000 people. But it was whites only from 1913 to 1949, even though Black people in St. Louis made up 15% of the population. And for decades, they just had one sad indoor municipal pools amongst them all. And this was only thanks to their relentless protests. This system, this system had ripple effects. The basic skill of swimming, which had once been common, soon became out of reach for Black folks who then became at a higher risk, for drowning. And then became reinforced with racial stereotypes about us not being able to swim, or that we sank, that we could not float, that our bodies simply sank. Our bodies simply sank. All of this began to change a little bit during the 1950s and 1960s. This was during the civil rights movement, and we had begun to be a bit tired of separate but equal. And pools became battlegrounds for that. They became battlegrounds for protests. Pools and beaches witnessed what was called wait-in protests, and these were inspired by the lunch counter sit-ins. Black folks would defy local segregation laws by entering white-only pools and beaches, and these protests didn't just happen in the South. They happened in places like Chicago's Rainbow Beach, or the infamous scene in St. Augustine, Florida in 1964, where while the world was watching, the motel owner of the Monsoon Motor Lodge dumped acid into the pool to drive out the Black protesters. These horrifying images were splashed across TVs and newspapers everywhere, and forced the nation to confront just how ugly Jim Crow was. And after landmark victories like the Civil Rights Act that barred the outlawed segregation and public accommodation, you would think that this would begin the end of the struggle, but it was very much the beginning. Because as court orders ordered swimming pools to desegregate, many cities simply drained their pools and closed them. Some of them just cemented over the pools altogether. Some local governments sold the land to private swim clubs or homeowners association, which legally kept Black families out through strict membership rules. This rapidly growing suburbs, white families built backyard swimming pools or neighborhood pools. And if you lived in a Black neighborhood, you were lucky to get a splash pad if you got anything at all. The result of all of this is that millions of Black kids grew up without a safe place to take swimming lessons. And this had real tragic consequences. Black children Black children today are 5 times more likely to drown than their white counterparts. And this is not a coincidence. This is decades of exclusion and neglect showing up in the worst possible way. So why does this continue to happen? Nearly 64% of Black children have little to no swimming ability. And this happens mostly because kids in the United States learn from their parents. And we've just talked about that cycle of learning. That cycle of learning has been broke. That cycle of swimming had been broken long ago. And then you add challenges around hair care products, chlorine, maintenance, or maybe you just had a bad experience in the water. And it's no wonder that Black people stay away from pools. But there is some positive news to this. There are organizations that help combat this. USA Swimming, the YMCA, grassroots programs everywhere do have a mission to make swimming accessible for everybody. They offer free, cheap swimming lessons. They fund pools in cities, and they spread a word about swimming and being more than just leisure, and it being a critical life skill like riding a bike or driving a car. So the bottom line here is that history tried very, very hard to keep Black folks from swimming, but it didn't have to stay that way. With the right push, we can reclaim what was lost to us, what we used to be the masters of, and make swimming safe and available for everybody. And it saves lives, and it opens up an entire world of swimming to a new generation. All right. That was nice. I like that. That was a short and sweet one. I did one, and the last one, I think it's like 25 minutes. That took way too long. That took absolutely too long. I will say this. Like I mentioned earlier, I learned to swim because of my father. He made sure that we went to and took swimming lessons and learned how to swim. And I remember initially having, a real reluctance to swimming in water where I couldn't touch the ground, and him tossing me into the deep end and like, you'll be all right, you'll make it. And yeah, I'm still here. That doesn't feel like a traumatizing experience, though. It does feel a bit like it was a traumatizing experience, but I'm still alive. I'm still alive. And a lot of the places that he took me no longer exist here in the city. They have been turned into other things, whether they were demolished and turned into townhouses, or I think one of the ones is turned into a golf course. And many of those here are um, primarily in Black neighborhoods. Um, they do have an aquatic center here in Charlotte that I'm assuming they direct people to, but it's a huge difference from having a neighborhood public pool that was walkable to having to drive all the way downtown to the aquatic center. Um, that said, I haven't been I haven't been to the public pool in a while. I can swim though. I think I'm a fish. I feel like I'm a fish. I'm in the ocean. In the ocean, my wife tells me I go out too far. That I do too much. That I'm doing too much. I'm out too far. I'm too far away. Like she has this thing where she doesn't want you to be uh, any further out than the white folks, which is that's a legitimate claim. Like I get it. I understand that. I understand. I get why you say that. Um, so anyway, let me see what's going on. What is happening? And the YMCA on 4th Street. My pop showed up in here. When I joined the military, we had to crawl over a pool of water, and I held the room. Yeah, I see. I get that. I could get that. I'm be honest with you, even even in my big age, and while I can swim, I'm not the best. I'm not the best swimmer, and I don't really enjoy swimming without like having um, like I said as a kid, like without being to touch the ground. It's weird. It is weird for me. So um I don't want to claim that I'm somehow turning to Michael Phelps because that is not the case. That is absolutely not the case. When I was young, in my childhood, we had the swimming lessons at the school, and I went back to Leisure Centers. Yeah, we had um one of the things about here is that if you want to learn how to swim, you have to actively seek out swimming. You have to, especially if like like I said, most kids were taught by their parents. So if you don't have a parent that knows how to swim, the only other way that you're going to get access to that is by going to the YMCA, by going to the aquatic center and signing up for lessons. And some of those cost money. You know, it's a real effort to learn to get kids to learn how to swim. And I feel like many people don't really see the value or importance in it, um, which I kind of understand. I kind of understand why if you didn't swim and your parents didn't swim, what value would you see in learning to swim? You're like everybody. We were fine without it before. We were fine. We were fine without it before. Oh yeah, thank you so much, man. Thank you so much. I'm in Charlotte. Like so we're like they're 2,000 miles away from each other. Yeah, I was born and raised in Charlotte. So like all the stories that I tell, it's primarily about Charlotte and Charlotte's public pools at the time. Yeah, my pops who is in here used to take us to they used to have a swimming pool in Double Oaks and another one in Revolution Park, and we used to go over there all the time and swim and hang out with the locals. It was an experience. He told me he told me it built character. He wanted me to hang out hang out with the kids. This is kind of how we ended up because I played in a police athletic league and things like that as a kid, and he made a real effort for us to hang out with he called them the hood kids, but I was young. I didn't really there's no real line in the sand. They seem normal to me, but like, I want you to hang out and see, how the other half live, how they live, absorb that, and it was nice. I look back on it as a character building moment. It's not as if they were, it was different, but like you need to see because I mean we grew up middle class, and it's very easy to become disconnected from everybody, from your people, or have lack of empathy for people, and that's where like going to see how the other half live is really important. So at the time though, it's like riding the bus. You're not gonna come get me. You gonna make me ride the bus home? Come on, man. Let me see what's popping in the comments. Yeah, it is. It is. I think it's really important. And there was a time I broke my foot several years ago. And I actually broke both feet. This is kind of why I'm telling y'all a lot today. So my wife actually banned me from playing basketball because I had broken my feet. I had broken my foot. I'm granted, I'm in my old age, but like this is, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And she banned me from hooping because I had broken like my fifth metatarsal in both my feet. Like not at the same time, but like over course of hooping. And it was rough. It was hard for her to have me hopping along. You can't like you kind of when you're the breadwinner, it's very difficult for you to be out of commission for you know 6 to 9 weeks. Or no, it was actually 9 to 12, something like that. Either way, I mean, I was to say that what I would do for exercise was start swimming. I went to the YMCA and picked up swimming as opposed to running on a treadmill or walking or doing things like that. And that helped my swimming immensely. But also I realized just how difficult swimming was. I was not good at it. I was not good at it. And then you would have people who were like natural swimmers, like, they would be on their Michael Phelps and they would just lap me and I would just slowly plod along in my lane. I felt like I was in the silver class. Like I was in the silver class or I didn't belong. Like I'm not supposed to be in here with the rest of you guys because I am not a competent swimmer. But I really enjoyed that time. Makes me want to go back. I might pick it up again. I had this dream, you know, that I was going to do a triathlon once. I had this dream of doing a triathlon, and I was like, I could do the running. I got the running down. I could do the bike. I'm pretty decent on the bike, and I had a sobering moment when people were like, "Yo, do you know how long a triathlon is in the water?" I was like, "How long could it be? 18 laps in an Olympic style swimming pool. Can you do 18 laps?" No, I can't do one lap. So that dream died that day. That was it. That was over. It was over for me in my triathlon dreams. I didn't want to win. I just wanted to do it. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. He was. He wanted us to be involved in the community. And I I respect it. I respect it. I really do. Those places, a lot of places that we visited, that we used to hang out, like I talk about Revolution Park, don't exist anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. The community does. The Black community around it still exists, but the park that we used to practice at when I was in the police athletic league, I'm not even sure the police athletic league because it has a lot of competition from third parties now. I'm not sure they still exist. So it's sad to me that these institutions that once helped a lot of Black kids, play football, play basketball, would come get you. And a lot of these guys work for the city. Like this stuff doesn't sucks. It sucks. Where's my water? Oh, there it is. Man, let me tell you something. I have tried. I might need to go back just to learn how to float because I went. I tried to swim. I can swim and do God, what's the one? Freestyle, breaststroke. It's fine. All the other disciplines, like I'm not even going to do that. That's what people who do this for a living. But I tried to float once, and it was just not happening. It's not happening. I am not good. I'm not good at doggy paddle either. I'm either like standing on the ground, swimming, or like I'm out. I'm out the pool. Like I don't have that skill. I have not developed that skill. I have not developed that skill. But yet, when I go to the beach, I think I'm a fish. I think I'm a fish. I get out there and I'll do some body surfing and my wife is like, "You out too far." I was like, "This is part of the experience. You get out here and I body surf like I'm a fish and then I come in." And I come in. Oh man, let's see. I this was a short story today, so like I got time. I got time today. We could talk. We could chat because I got time today. We only like 23 minutes in. So what happened this so today is my wife's birthday. It is her birthday. She is hanging out with her homies, hanging out with the homies today. So I'm with the kiddo. We celebrated her birthday yesterday, and now she is out with the homies. But she's a teacher, so she has a teaching list that I have been promoting around, and I'm very proud of. I'm proud that people that I have people that will support my wife because I'm not going to ask for money, but if you support her and her teaching like that, I'm really appreciative of that. Because she didn't ask for much. And be honest with you, my son's 5. I see a group that she teaches, and I don't know how she does it. It couldn't be me. It couldn't be me. Your kids would not learn nothing if they was in Mr. Motley's class. Like I don't have it. But the patience that she shows is really impressive. Really impressive to me. And every once in a while, I get to see like the glimpses of teacher Motley of her, and it's impressive, man. I am in awe of what she's able to accomplish. I'm a little jealous. I'm a little jealous that she found something that she is like, she's in here. It's weird. Now it's weird. It's weird. She made it weird because she showed up in here. But no, she's an awesome teacher, and she's one of those people that's never going to um like really toot her own horn or uh hey, she saw this, so now I have to give it to her. Like legally, I have to give her the money. But no, she's one of the people that's never going to toot her own horn, and so you have to do that stuff for her. Yeah, somebody else has to say like, "Yo, you're fantastic at your job. You're great at your job. You're really good at this." Because she's never going to be like, "I'm a great teacher. Look at all these mugs that I have over the years." So, but no, yeah, it's dope. It's dope, and it's a birthday. So happy birthday. Happy birthday, Tay. All right. So also, but my wife shares the same birthday as James Baldwin, which is dope as hell. It's so awesome. Like, who I share my birthday with? Al Roker. Al Roker. Which, I mean, no disrespect to Al Roker. He's my dad texted me that I learned to swim at 3 months. Thank you. Well, thank you. I appreciate that teacher. You're teaching us how to swim. Um, I'll be honest with you. I think she's one of those things she just kind of fell into. She went to school. She went to North Carolina A&T State University. You got to say the whole thing. It's like a Tribe Called Quest. And I think originally she wanted to be a social worker and then switched from being social work into teaching. And later on just realized she had a real love for teaching. So it wasn't one of those things she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a teacher," and I've always wanted to be a teacher. It's more one of those things where you show you find your love for something later on in after taking the classes and the courses. And so now after 18 years, like, I've never done anything for 18 years straight, by the way. 18 years it is. And well, this is year 18 coming up. Like, she still had the same passion. Like, she's sick of your kids, though. She has a pain passion for teaching, but them kids working the nerves. She be all like, "Ooh, boy, this kid, yeah, it ain't it. He ain't it." It ain't it. But she's not, I love it. I love it though. I love that I wish I was as passionate about anything as she is at teaching. I'm not that guy. I don't have that level of passion for anything. I guess I love history, but like her, I kind of fell into this. Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. See, she said everybody's telling her how she was good with kids. That's how she fell into it. That's how she switched from social work to becoming a teacher. So I've been looking at ways. So I have an episode coming out tomorrow where I talk about the Buffalo Soldiers. This is kind of ignited by the whole controversy with about Beyonce and her Buffalo Soldiers T-shirt that she wore, which had like a passage in the back about how they were the defenders of peace against Mexicans and natives, and it basically insinuated that you know they were agents for the United States. And I wanted to try to talk about that misconception, especially a lot about the Buffalo Soldiers, because that this is the thing. This is the thing that I personally hate about that people do is they have this conception that like our ancestors were stupid, like they weren't aware of their plight. You see this a lot when they talk about religion, and people mention that, "Hi, like why do we celebrate a white man's religion?" Well, our people were well aware that they were being disconnected from their own religion. They were well aware that that they're celebrating a religion that wasn't their own, but they were able, just like black people, to endure and take bits and pieces out of it and find something important in all of this, in all of that. And I forgot where I was going. I had a moment. We were talking about food, and I kind of Buffalo Soldiers. Yes. So there's this idea that the Buffalo Soldiers were just working with their own autonomy, that they would just do what they wanted to do. They were agents for the United States. They were being told what to do. In a lot of cases, they were banned from going into the well-populated areas. They could not go into around where white settlers were. The white settlers did not want them around. And when they did come around, you would get incidences like the Brownsville affair, where they allegedly got into it with a white bartender, and people ended up getting shot. And Teddy Roosevelt got them basically, what's the word? He got the entire company disbanded. He had the entire company disbanded, and this happened ironically during the same time with Booker T. Washington, because he was an advisor for Teddy Roosevelt at the time, and he was like, "Hey, why don't we find out? Let me do some research, find out what happened. Let's talk to the people, find out what happened." Teddy Roosevelt was like, "Nah, we ain't got time for that. We just need to get rid of them. They're doing too much. We need to get rid of them." And a lot of people, and publicly, privately, he talked to Teddy Roosevelt, but publicly, he didn't say much. And a lot of people, this is really one of the incidents that turned people sour on Booker T. Washington, was the Brownsville affair and what happened to the Buffalo Soldiers. And ultimately, like, your boy Du Bois is on his neck. He already was like, "Yo, I'm sick of that. I'm sick of that nigga. I'm sick of him. Sick of his accommodationist ways." I know. I feel like this is the content that we provide it's important as ever. It's really tough. It's really tough because what people want on YouTube and what I think is important don't always align. And I usually tell the story I want to tell anyway. Like, I don't. Because I talked about last time I did the one about the black paramedics, how black folks were the first paramedics in Pittsburgh, and that video would like double wood. I don't care. I tell the stories that I want to tell. This is one of the things about me at the channel. And while I will tell some stories that I feel like, oh yeah, this is gonna be it. The people gonna love it. Even the stories that they don't love, I'm still very proud of, and I'm still going to tell because I think they are important. Like, I would not do the Freedom House paramedics simply because people didn't watch it in the same rate that they watched the story on Marion Stokes or the story on the Nordaway plantation. Like, those stories are, in my mind, are equally as important and equally as entertaining. It's just, hey, go check them out. Go watch it, and I think that you enjoy it. To give it a chance. Give it a chance. Even though I am very proud of Marion Stokes and the Nordaway Mansion episodes, I just think that, hey, a lot of times when episodes go double wood, that onus is on me because I have to sell the stories better. I have to figure out what initiates that response in people the way they want to say, "Hey, I want to see more. I want to watch more. I want to learn more about this." And that's the part it's very difficult for me. It's hard to sell this. I by trade am an IT guy. I am on or off. I am very binary. Which is like, well, what I'm doing. Hey, I did this story. This is what happened. This is what happened. This is what the story is about. But that's not what this is. YouTube is about selling things to people. I am selling you content, and during that process, I have to convince you that this is worthy of your time, worthy of you paying attention to. And I don't always do the best job of it, but what you gonna do? I still love the story. And also, I will say this. There have been times where I've had videos that went double wood, and I was like, "Wow, that sucked." And then later on, they will take off and do extremely well after months. And the summers are ass too because the kids aren't in school. As they're coming back to school, things start to pick up. But like, I had an episode on the Peanuts and the Peanuts and Dennis the Menace, where I talked about the birth of Franklin and the birth of the black character was on Dennis the Menace. And initially that episode did poorly. People didn't really watch it. They didn't seem to care for it. Months later, it's now up to 100,000 views. It's now up to over 100,000 views. And so this is why I don't get too caught up in the numbers. I just put out content and try to do things that I think are important and tell a story and put it out there in the earth. And I believe that eventually that people will watch it and come to enjoy it. I hope, at least I hope so. Thank you so much. I didn't say anything. I'm trying. We're gonna put out, like I was telling Citizen Morgan a couple minutes ago. I have an episode coming out tomorrow and probably one next week. Even though, like, I'm doing the way my mind works is I'm like constantly researching for new episodes, and it's just about picking which episode I'm going to talk about. What episode is this week or every other week is that we're going to talk about, and then turning that into a video. So I'm not really sure what next week's going to be about, but I have been looking into trying to do more with food. I had been kind of looking to additional episodes, maybe something around jambalaya or um, or grits, possibly grits, possibly around Sunday dinners and the evolution of Sunday dinners. Um, we'll see. We'll see. I really like the idea of doing the jambalaya one because it crosses cultures. It touches on multiple different cultures with its creation. So it's not just a black thing. And this is one of the important things about, the stories that I tell. That we don't black folks don't build everything. We didn't create everything. What a lot of times, you know, what do you say? You made it a hot line, I made it a hot song. That's a lot of times what happens with things. Like when you look at mac and cheese, mac and cheese, I mean, let me not say that. It was created by the French. Macaroni pie was created by the French, but James Hemings introduced macaroni pie to the American people via Thomas Jefferson. James Hemings was the brother of Sally Hemings, who you probably know because she was assaulted by him. They had several kids together. Um, but anyway, he is credited with introducing the American audiences to a bunch of foods that we had never seen before, and then adapting those foods to what we had here, because we didn't have a lot access, especially during that time, to a lot of the cheeses that they were using, the sauces. So he just had to make do and made his own version of macaroni pie here in the United States, and that pie would eventually turn into Kraft macaroni and cheese. Kraft macaroni and cheese, especially specifically during the Great Depression, because it was cheap. So people were eating that as a meal. You buy Kraft cheese in a box, and then they would eat that as a meal. And later on, black folks would turn it to bake macaroni and cheese as a way to, like, what do they call it? Jazz it up, make it nice. They were basically trying to turn something that was like a struggle meal into something dope, something better, something much better. And that's where you get like baked macaroni and cheese. So you look back, you're like, yo, this is macaroni and cheese. This is quintessentially black. But that's because we took it and made it. We like borrowed that. Let me borrow that. Let me borrow this recipe. I mean, this is nice what you got here with the microwave macaroni and cheese, but we about to do something dope with it. And that's where you get baked macaroni and cheese. But that didn't just happen with that. Like barbecue's the same way. Barbecue, the idea of barbecue or barbacoa was by the natives, by Native Americans, specifically around, I think around Florida. And they introduced it to the Spanish, and the Spanish was like, oh, this is dope. And they called it barbacoa. And then when enslaved black people got a hold of it, we started introducing pit barbecue, slow cooking methods that we brought seasoning, because baby, for you to go to war over spices, they wasn't using none of it. Famously, the Scottish invented fried chicken, but they didn't season it at all. It was just like fried chicken in a bowl, in a pan. That's it. Eat it, not seasoned with nothing. Anyway, back to barbecue. So we took it, put it in the ground, start slow cooking it, and got so good at it that there was a point where, like, barbecue was our thing. Like you couldn't have an official barbecue without black people. Like we were the gateway to that. And that and a pit master was an old slave who had a team who oversaw the entire process. It wasn't until the 20th century that a pit master was someone white, and even then he was the overseer over the entire process, and it was being the work was actually being done by black folks who had the actual knowledge that they're working on. So that's the sort of thing you said with food. Food is a great example of this. It's a great example of not just our ability to adapt and change and take things and work with like the worst cuts of meat, or take a bad situation and make something dope out of it, but it's also like you see this amazing ingenuity that comes out of it all, and it's wonderful. I love it. I love it. This is why I wish I had more foods. I flirted with the idea of creating a food channel because I it resonated so much with me, but I just don't think that's nearly as entertaining as having that food plus black folks. Like I think that's the ultimate thing here, is that it's us and our stories plus the food element, you know. Oh wow. It's funny you mentioned that because I was talking to a librarian on Substack yesterday, and I was wondering. I asked her, I was like, "Hey, what do you recommend?" She was like, "Literally thousands of books. What do you want to hear about?" I was like, I'm already overwhelmed. I'm already overwhelmed. I will say this. I talked about Henrietta Lacks because her birthday was yesterday. So I had a note that I mentioned about Henrietta Lacks because her birthday was yesterday, and The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks I recommend to anybody. Let me tell you something, man. Like as much as I love James Baldwin, talking about James Baldwin, um, Henrietta Lacks is probably one of my favorite stories. The only part that makes me sad is that she never got to see how much she meant to the world. She died in 1951, long before she got to see what HeLa cells would become. Now, granted, they knew when she was still alive that HeLa cells was immortal and would grow in a lab, in perpetuity. But they didn't tell her. They didn't tell her anything. And what's ironically about the entire thing is that it was only after she passed away did the John Hopkins is where she passed away, the hospital, that John Hopkins asked for consent. They didn't have to get consent for it to take samples from a live person. They would just do it. But if you died, they had to get the consent from the family. And I was like, do you understand how ass backwards that was? And that's not just because they were black. That's everybody. Like the idea of medical consent, that is a recent thing. That's a fairly recent idea. Um, so the fact that her cells were used in like IVF and HIV, cancer research, and virology, there's so many things that it's specifically vaccine research that just wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Henrietta Lacks. And I'm like, lady, you should have, like, I wish you could see it. I wish you could see it. I wish you could just know how much you meant to medical research, how many lives you saved. It's sad, but it's a great story. I will say this: her family sued Thermo Fisher Scientific and it was undisclosed, but based on what they were suing for, they got the bag. Like they had to back up a truck. They were suing for like the total sum of the profits that they've ever made from the use of HeLa cells in their medical products. That basically is everything. That's everything, baby. That's everything. So the fact that you settled out of court, they got the bag. And once again, like she's laying down for the groundwork for generational wealth decades after she passed away. Like that's insanity to me. It's crazy to me how much Henrietta Lacks meant to the world, to medical science, and that she never got to see any of it. She never got to see any of it. Anyway. Oh man. I don't even know what I would do if I but wasn't telling history. I have flirted with the idea of doing other YouTube channels, but I don't know what that would be. If I did, they still would probably be history focused, history based. Um, but I have thought about the idea of doing stories about people that were morally gray, and I've kind of shot this idea around here to you guys about people that um, maybe weren't the nicest, maybe weren't the greatest. Like every person I talk about was, and they weren't above reproach. They did some things, but they were ultimately working in the best interests of their people and the people around them. When you talk about Fred Hampton was about that life. He was not about that bullshit. He was a leader of men. And the reason why he was murdered is because he was a leader of men. They were terrified of somebody like him. And you can say the same for Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or even Huey Newton or Elijah Muhammad, who less so, but he was a leader of men. And I would like to tell the stories about people who just weren't that great. Like, like if you're and I like to make the analogy to Italians when they talk about the mafia. You write these stories, tell these stories about the mafia. They don't always have to be nice people. They don't always have to be nice people, but the history is what it is. I should be able to tell a story about Frank Lucas, or someone, or Black Mafia family. I don't think I would ever do it on this channel, though. I don't think that's the platform for this, but I do think that there is a platform for telling stories about people who weren't that great, and but were still interesting. I also have been, but ultimately, like outside of like telling stories about more people that are morally great, I have this dream of opening up a production company where um, we produce content from Black creators. You know, um, I watched Kev on Stage do something similar, and Mr. Ballin. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He has a massive following on YouTube. But since he's gotten large, he's created a production company where he like got together a bunch of other large YouTubers and was like, "Yo, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to create?" And we're going to create that together. And I have this dream to do that, something similar, where I get people together and like, "Yo, what do you want to do? You were successful in this, and you were successful in this, so let's go be successful together in something else." I don't know when or if ever that will happen, but hey, a man's got to have a dream. A man got to have a dream, right? I don't feel like there's any, and granted, I don't watch a whole lot of YouTubers. I like what I like, so I don't expose myself to everybody else. But I don't think there's a space where a black person or a black team was doing that, where they promoted black content and then got together a bunch of people and was like, "Yo, what do you want to do? Let's do that together." Like I've seen it done in other platforms. I know it can be done, but can I do this here on YouTube? Can we do this here for a podcast format? So we'll see. We'll see. Like first and foremost, we'll worry about Mike, and then we'll expand to everybody else. We'll see where that takes us. See where that takes us. Thank you so much, man. I enjoy having you here. I'm so glad you guys are here and you love this format. It's like I talked about before, it's kind of about just getting my 10,000 hours in and getting comfortable in front of the camera, because I spent most of my time behind the camera. I've never gotten used to just talking directly to people. And even when I did do this, I would have somebody with me. This is why when people ask, they were like, "Hey, you want me to join you?" I was like, "Nah, I need to do this by myself. I need to learn how to do this alone, and then I can bring someone else in, and it's easier because I'm used to being by myself. I can keep the mic, I can keep this going for a long period of time." Oh wow. All of the music that I use, I get from YouTube. YouTube has some royalty-free music that you can just use. Like if you add that, it's already the license. Some of them, they have some criteria where they say, "Hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z, so you can add this." Some like you need to say, "Hey, this is the person," and credit them. But many of them, it was like, it's free to use. You ain't gotta do nothing. Just you good when you add it. And because of that, I know that I'm not gonna have no problem. I'm not gonna have any smoke. So I continuously use a lot of the same tracks because I've gotten used to them. And it's difficult for me to find new tracks that I like. When I find something I like, it's hard for me to transition to something else because I've gotten accustomed to this. Change is hard. Change is hard. Change is hard. Oh man, thank you so much, man. We're gonna keep doing this. We got to 50 minutes. I'm rambling. I'm rambling at this point, and plus, I want to drink my Coke. Which, by the way, I am a contradiction, a paradox in my own self, because I certainly did the episode about Coca-Cola and how I talked about how it used to be the white soda and Pepsi was the black soda. But boy, this shit is it's delicious. And if Coke, if you're watching, because you've changed over, several decades. If you want to sponsor me, I'll take some money. I'll do a spot. I'm not taking my video down. History is what it is, but like if you want to give me money, I'm not gonna turn the money down. Anyway, I am not gonna hold you guys. It has been awesome. It's been fun. I'm going to try to make this a more regular occurrence. We'll see if I can make this a weekly occurrence. If nothing else. Oh, I know. I'm sad. I'm sad that you came in late, but I'm going to try. Yeah, it does depend. It really does depend on my mood. I typically always have some cherry cokes, but I will drink if it's a cola. I'll drink pretty much any of them. I need to stop. Like you want to ask me what my vice is? The person who doesn't drink, who doesn't smoke, Pepsi. It's Coke. It's Coke. I drink far too many of them. I need to wean myself off of them. Um, but I thank you guys. I thank you guys for coming out and for joining me today and for helping me get comfortable being on live. If I'm rambling, I'm sorry. I be having like 90,000 ideas going on in my brain that I want to try to get out or talk about at the same time. Like I simultaneously want to talk about Henrietta Lacks and Coca-Cola, and Booker T. Washington. So, but I really appreciate you guys for coming out. And if you want to follow me, I'm regularly on Substack. I'm on Substack every day. This is probably the platform that I am on, and I converse with people the most often. I would love for you guys to join me at my Substack. I put out notes every single day. And I put out articles every single week. The newest article I put out this week was about the Red Summer. Previous article was about Booker T. Washington and W.E. Du Bois and their beef. Which, by the way, let me tell you something about being petty. You guys think that in 2025 that we cornered the market on pettiness? No, in 1900s. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington was as petty could get, and this is like 120 years ago. Especially Du Bois. Du Bois created. Before I get out of here, Du Bois created an entire civil rights organization just to fight against Booker T. Washington. He gathered. That is generational hatred. He's like, hey, all you guys, y'all hate Booker T. Washington. We all hate Booker T. Washington. Together, we the Niagara movement, and we're gonna hate this nigga together. And it it worked because they were the predecessor to the NAACP. So it's wild. It's wild out here. So check out those articles. They're dope. I'm really happy about them. Once again, just like this, writing this is new to me. Live is new to me. Bear with me. I'm a one-man band, but I always appreciate you guys coming out. I really appreciate you talking, conversing with me. It's always pleasant, always cordial. You let me ramble on about some Black history subject that I, like today was about swimming, and I really appreciate you. Thank y'all for coming out, and God bless you. Good night.